I'd like to welcome everybody again to church, wherever you are. Thank you for joining together with people on the journey on this third Sunday of Lent. And we're going to go over the announcements as we normally do before the service begins. And the first announcement is about the upcoming Sunday message givers. So next Sunday, Al Dunlop is going to give the message. And then on March 26th, it's myself. Then April 2nd is Palm Sunday, and I'll be giving the message that day as well. And then we're going to have a Good Friday service at 7 p.m., so an evening service here in Invermere, but obviously we'll make it a hybrid as well. And then, of course, Easter Sunday is April 9th. And a little shout out to the folks. Thank you for financially giving to the church if you can. And there's different ways to give, and I know sometimes you have to go out of your way to do it, but thank you for making that a part of your relationship to the church. And then we every Sunday like to remember the Mission and Service Fund of the United Church of Canada and the Primates World Relief and Development Fund of the Anglican Church. Two wonderful umbrella organizations that do an awful lot of good locally in Canada and around the world. So you can't go wrong by supporting them. Every Friday morning, we have a time called Fridays with Eckhart. Eckhart Tolle is a spiritual teacher, and it's online, and we listen to talks by Eckhart. It's a spiritual time, it's a meditative time, a time for self-reflection and self-awareness. Please let me know if you'd like to receive a link. There will not be a meeting this Friday. I'm heading up to Golden for Margaret Olson's funeral service. So no meeting this coming Friday. And we've been also working through the book, The Gift of Years, Growing Older Gracefully by Joan Chittister. So this continues this Wednesday in the afternoon or evening. And so we're going to do the chapters from dreams to future. Okay. So yes, Good Friday service, 7 p.m. on Good Friday, in person in Invermere and online. So this is a picture of Margaret Olson. She was a beloved person of Golden and of the church family up there in Golden. She passed away last Sunday at the age of 98. And so we're going to be gathering at St. Andrew's Church in Golden at 1 p.m. this coming Friday to remember and celebrate Margaret. And Judith Hardcastle is going to be there. Judith was the minister up in Golden 12 years ago and has just kept a lovely friendship with Margaret ever since too. So Judith and I will be presiding, and the church family will be hosting and so on. So nice to remember Margaret today. We put this slide in periodically. Richard Rohr's Daily Meditations are free email reflections sent every day of the year. If you would like to sign up to receive one of these devotion meditations that come every day, type into your browser Richard Rohr's Daily Meditations and follow the instructions. So it's quite easy to set up, and then it's quite easy to unsubscribe too, but they're very thoughtful, faithful devotions. And so you might enjoy waking up in the morning and having that to read. They're not long. They make a nice daily devotion. A committee is being formed to steer Windermere Valley Shared Ministry and St. Andrews through a process that will potentially lead us to become affirming congregations. Sally is going to chair the committee. A number of people have already expressed interest in being on the committee. If you are also interested, please let Sally know. They're going to be, Sally's already sent out communication to them, and they have things to read, but they'll be sort of gathering soon as well. So we've been reading through the 94 calls to action from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Today we're reading, I think it's call number 45 from under the category of reconciliation. So call number 45, we call upon the Government of Canada on behalf of all Canadians to jointly develop with Aboriginal peoples a royal proclamation of reconciliation to be issued by the Crown. The proclamation would build on the Royal Proclamation of 1763 and the Treaty of Niagara of 1764, and reaffirm the nation-to-nation relationship between Aboriginal peoples and the Crown. The proclamation would include, but not be limited to, the following commitments. So, number one, repudiate concepts used to justify European sovereignty over Indigenous lands and peoples, such as the doctrine of discovery and terra nullius. Terra nullius was a legal term for the idea that a land was unowned prior to a colonial power taking it over. It allowed colonial powers to act as if a land was uninhabited. So instead of admitting that it was invading land that belonged to Aboriginal people, colonial powers acted as if it were settling empty land. Number two, adopt and implement the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples as the framework for reconciliation. Number three, renew or establish treaty relationships based on principles of mutual recognition, mutual respect, and shared responsibility for maintaining those relationships into the future. And number four, reconcile Aboriginal and Crown constitutional and legal orders to ensure that Aboriginal peoples are full partners in Confederation, including the recognition and integration of Indigenous laws and legal traditions in negotiation and implementation processes involving treaties, land claims, and other constructive agreements. And now we take a moment to acknowledge that we are on the unceded territory of the Shuswap Tanaha people in the chosen homeland of the Métis, here in our part of the world. And we celebrate that we seek to live in much more intentional and conscious relationship with our Aboriginal neighbors and friends. And as we normally do at the beginning of our service, I invite us to have a moment of presence, which means to come into the present moment with our attention and not think, just to be present and to be aware. So let's have a moment of presence. And let's say together the words from Psalm 46. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am. Be still and know. Be still. Be. I invite you to stay seated, and we're going to sing a couple times through our invocation musical piece, O God We Call. O God we call, O God we call, from deep inside we yearn, from deep inside we yearn, from deep inside we yearn for you. O God we call, O God we call, from deep inside we yearn, from deep inside we yearn, from deep inside we yearn for you. Today is the third Sunday of Lent. Today, water is part of the imagery conveying the message. It's not far off to say that water is life. Metaphorically, finding water is finding life. Where is this living water to be found? We'll hear the old story of Moses tapping a rock in the wilderness, out of which came water, life in desert places, sustained where nothing much seemed to be. We'll listen in on the conversation between Jesus and the Samaritan woman at the well. It's mystical language, but we may feel within that we too want to find that source of life, the well within that never runs dry. Come, let us find the quiet center, the source within us that we call God again today. And we'll sing our opening hymn. It's Come and Find the Quiet Center. Feel free to sit or stand as you'd like. And if you have a hymn book, it's number 374 in the hardback Voices United. Come and find the quiet center in the crowded life we lead. Find the room for hope to enter. Find the frame where we are freed. Clear the chaos and the clutter. Clear our eyes that we can see all the things that really matter. Be at peace and simply be. Silence is a friend who claims us, cools the heat and slows the pace. God it is who speaks and names us, knows our being face to face, making space within our thinking, lifting shades to show the sun, raising courage when we're shrinking, finding scope for faith begun. In the Spirit, let us travel, open to each other's pain. Let our loves and fears unravel, celebrate the space we gain. There's a place for deepest dreaming, there's a time for heart to care. In the Spirit's lively scheming, there is always room to spare. Thanks, everybody. So we have in our service what we title Words of Wisdom, and today they come from a book by Steve Taylor, who's a beautiful writer about spiritual matters, and it's entitled, I Love the Days. I love the days of doing nothing, when time stops hovering over my shoulder, pointing and shouting directions. I love the days with no direction, when we ignore itineraries and turn off-road and wander through wild open spaces without moving forward or backward. I love the days of no expectations, of not deciding anything in advance or not deciding anything at all, depending on the needs of each unfolding moment. I love the days of not needing to be anywhere but now. I love the days of not being productive that become the most productive of all. I love the days of doing nothing that become gloriously full of being. And that is the end of that little poem. So I saw a picture of Benny, so I'm going to go over to the Benny station and see if he shows up. There. I'm just checking with people online. Can you hear? Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Wonderful. Oh, well, I think I'll just wait a minute and see. Benny probably has to park his, her. We're never quite sure if Benny's a him or a her. They, them, I guess. However, it's tough when Benny is so technically able, and sometimes Benny has to take care of technical things too. Oh, maybe Benny didn't reset the clock. That's true. Sally, can you help Benny with the microphone?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Oh, there you are.
You're right. That guy out there was right. I didn't. Why are you here so early today?
Well, we have this thing of changing our clocks to have more light in the evenings. Hi, Benny.
Well, I just wake up when the sun comes up and go to bed when the sun goes down.
That sounds like a healthy thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although hibernating, I guess you don't wake up quite the same, do you?
No. It's just on the Sundays I do that.
And
I'm running. I'm out of breath. I'm thirsty. Oh, look what you have over there.
Oh, Benny. So I do. I have a glass of water here. And today water is a main sort of symbol or imagery in the stories. And it's a really good one because it's interesting to reflect on how central water is to life. Like when you think about it, nothing lives without water. I don't know. Do you know anything that lives without water? There's no leaf, there's no grass, there's no tree.
I haven't done research on that yet.
Oh, okay.
No.
Well.
So I would agree with you.
Yeah, and then when scientists are looking like on planets to see if there was any sign of water, that's indication if there had been water at one point, there could have been life.
Wow.
No water, no life.
Yeah.
Because it's just so central to life. And so today water is used as a sign of life. But it's a symbol in the stories. It's a metaphor because of course we need water physically, but we
sure do.
We need life too. Like life, there's sort of life that flows in us, and so
I can feel like there's life in me. Like I feel movement within me.
Yeah, that's right. And the opposite of not having enough water is that we become thirsty. And it's an interesting one. Is being thirsty, is that a feeling or is that a sensation? And what is the difference between a sensation and a feeling, which is an interesting one?
Wow, you could do a doctorate on that. I don't know.
And then sometimes I've heard, and I guess if I reflected myself, and maybe you have this, Benny, sometimes we don't know how thirsty we are or how low of water we are.
I will wake up with headaches almost from not having drank enough.
Interesting. Yeah. So it's almost like in humans too. We could get a headache and then someone could say, are you drinking enough water? And we go, oh, I never made the connection.
I've heard that sometimes we're thirsty, but instead we go eat. And if we drink a glass of water, well, I don't drink a paw or two of water, then but instead I go eat. And then I still don't get what I want or need.
Right. And then humans do that too. It's sort of like when we're not connected to the source of life, then we start looking for life in all the wrong places.
Oh,
yeah, I don't know if you
get
listen.
that. No, I watch you people, and I think that's what's happening.
Yeah.
I think people are looking for that beautiful, quenching feeling of, can I say spirit even? Yeah. And then you go off and instead you buy a new car or you buy new clothes, and you're trying to find, you just can't get no satisfaction, as I've heard it said. Right?
You're very smart, Benny. You're right.
Yeah.
And so it's what we're talking about today is really important. It's important for individuals because we can all reflect on how is it that when I don't feel connected to the source of life within, I start looking without in an unhealthy way.
Yeah.
And also though, on the planet, if we have a bunch of thirsty, needy people, then there's people living in a way that the earth can't meet our needs or can't sustain us, like that kind of stuff. So today's topic is really important. Yeah.
Maybe if we all just sat and drank water, the world would be in a better place.
Well, that, but also,
but it's not about
if
water.
we find
I know.
the well within, the source within.
It's a
and
metaphor.
That's what we're talking about
Yeah.
today. Wonderful, Benny.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing
I
this.
might take that water, though. I am
I'm going to have a sip
thirsty.
again.
Okay. Oh, nice. Can I?
Yeah, good.
Thanks.
Okay.
Well, don't get my nose wet. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I think Benny almost forgot herself and started to drink water. Okay, we're going to sing our next hymn, By the Well, a Thirsty Woman. So it's a hymn that was written based on our gospel reading today and the topic. And I know it's 117 in more voices. So if you have more voices, wherever you are, you can turn to 117. And also, of course, the words will be up on the screen. So let's enjoy singing By the Well, a Thirsty Woman. By the well, a thirsty woman found the life that you could give. We too thirst like empty vessels. Fill us full that we may live. Jesus, source of living water, wellspring bubbling deep within. By the waters of our baptism, wisdom, purpose, life begin. Plant us firm like trees by water, send our roots down deep in you. Quench our parched and thirsty spirits with your water pure and true. Jesus, source of living water, nourisher of all on earth. By the waters of our baptism, quicken growth and give new birth. May we be your streams of justice, as the water may we move through your people by your Spirit, showing mercy, sharing love. Jesus, source of living water, groundswell forcing truth to view. By the waters of our baptism, set us free to live for you. What a beautiful hymn. Judy's going to read our scripture today. I'm going to invite her to come on up. And Judy, we don't have to forward a PowerPoint today because Sally's going to do it.
The first reading is from Exodus 17, verses 1 to 7. From the wilderness of Sin, the whole congregation of the Israelites journeyed by stages, as the Lord commanded. They camped at Rephidim, but there was no water for the people to drink. The people quarreled with Moses and said, "Give us water to drink." Moses said to them, "Why do you quarrel with me? Why do you test the Lord?" But the people thirsted there for water, and the people complained against Moses and said, "Why did you bring us out of Egypt to kill us and our children and livestock with thirst?" So Moses cried out to the Lord, "What shall I do with this people? They are almost ready to stone me." The Lord said to Moses, "Go on ahead of the people and take some of the elders of Israel with you. Take in your hand the staff with which you struck the Nile, and go. I will be standing there in front of you on the rock at Horeb, Strike the rock, and the water will come out of it, so that the people may drink." Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. He called the place Massah and Meribah, because the Israelites quarreled and tested the Lord, saying, "Is the Lord among us or not?" The gospel reading is John 4, verses 5 to 42. Samaria was a fertile land north of Jerusalem. At one time, it was occupied by the 10 tribes of Israel, while the 2 tribes of Judah occupied the southern region. However, when the Assyrians conquered the northern kingdom of Israel, the people were mostly deported, and people from other countries were brought in to settle the area. This was part of the Assyrians' policy intended to discourage future insurrections. The Samaritans, as these people came to be called, eventually began to worship Yahweh, the God of the Jews, whose land they now occupied. But they did not honor the temple in Jerusalem, worshiping God on various altars set up on high hills in Samaria instead. The fact that the Samaritans were of foreign extraction and did not worship as the Jews did created hostility between the 2 groups of people, even though they worshiped the same God. If it is your tradition to stand for the gospel reading, please feel free to stand. From John 4. So Jesus came to a Samaritan city called Sychar, near the plot of ground that Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, tired out by his journey, was sitting by the well. It was about noon. A Samaritan woman came to draw water, and Jesus said to her, "Give me a drink." His disciples had gone to the city to buy food. The Samaritan woman said to him, "How is it that you, a Jew, ask a drink of me, a woman of Samaria?" Jews do not share things in common with Samaritans. Jesus answered her, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is that is saying to you, 'Give me a drink,' you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water." The woman said to him, "Sir, you have no bucket, and the well is deep. Where do you get that living water? Are you greater than our ancestor Jacob, who gave us this well, and with his sons and his flocks drank from it?" Jesus said to her, "Everyone who drinks of this water will be thirsty again, but those who drink of the water that I will give them will never be thirsty. The water that I would give will become in them a spring of water gushing up to eternal life." The woman said to him, "Sir, give me this water so that I may never be thirsty or have to keep coming here to draw water." Jesus said to her, "Go, call your husband and come back." The woman answered him, "I have no husband." Jesus said to her, "You are right in saying, 'I have no husband,' for you have had 5 husbands, and the one you have now is not your husband. What you have said is true." The woman said to him, "Sir, I see that you are a prophet. Our ancestors worshipped on this mountain, but you say that the place where people must worship is in Jerusalem." Jesus said to her, "Woman, believe me, the hour is coming when you will worship the Father, neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem. You worship what you do not know. We worship what we know, for salvation is from the Jews. But the hour is coming and is now here when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and truth. For the Father seeks such as these to worship him. God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and truth." The woman said to him, "I know that Messiah is coming, who is called Christ. When he comes, he will proclaim all things to us." Jesus said to her, "I am he, the one who is speaking to you." Just then his disciples came. They were astonished that he was speaking with a woman, but no one said, "What do you want?" or "Why are you speaking with her?" Then the woman left her water jar and went back to the city. She said to the people, Come and see a man who has told me everything I have ever done. He cannot be the Messiah, can he?" They left the city and were on their way to him. May we hear sacred wisdom through these human texts. Thanks be to God. Amen.
Thanks, Judy. I'll just invite you to stay seated and we'll sing Mother and God. Mother and God, to you we sing. Wide is your womb, warm is your wing. In you we live, move, and are fed. Sweet flowing milk, life-giving bread. Mother and God, to you we bring all broken hearts, all broken wings. Thanks, and beautiful picture of a well there that Ross Smiley gave us last week. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of our hearts be grounded in a sacred place of wisdom today. I'd like to begin by mentioning Karen Armstrong's book titled The Art of Scripture. I just wanted to pause on that title, The Art of Scripture, the art, that Scripture is art. And so it needs to be seen as art, it needs to be read as art, okay? The art of Scripture. So right in the title, there is a profound sort of realization there, the art of Scripture. Now, at the beginning of her book, she talks about the difference between being a right hemisphere person and a left hemisphere person, okay? So left hemisphere, which then sort of more controls the right part of our body, is more logical, rational, conceptual, analytical, and literal, okay? And the right part, the right hemisphere, which then more controls the left part of our body, is more metaphorical, interpretive, holistic. It doesn't see sort of the separateness of parts, it sees the connection between things. And so things like music and art and poetry and so on are more belong in the right hemisphere. So when back in high school, can you remember back then? If you were better at math and science, you were probably doing pretty well in your left hemisphere. If you were better in English and social studies and the humanities and art, you probably were doing pretty well in your right hemisphere. Okay. So this in itself today, this is like this is a big deal on how we look at Scripture and look at scriptural stories, okay? And how we look at so much of the difficulty that people have with the Bible and so on, because we live in a very left hemisphere world that wants to see things empirically and scientifically and rationally and literally. So when people look at biblical stories with the left hemisphere, then they say, okay, I don't believe in the Bible because I don't see the story of Adam and Eve being true. I can't see how every human being came from one woman and one man and that they were walking in the garden, and it doesn't make sense to a left hemisphere person. But for a right hemisphere person, you go, I love the story of Adam and Eve. I have no need for it to be literally true. It's full of connections and symbolisms and meanings and so on. A right hemisphere person would love it. Okay, The trouble is, often people approach the Bible with the left hemisphere, and they say, if a star didn't move in the sky and settle over a house where the baby Jesus was born, then it's not true. That's left hemisphere.
People at home, we know that you cannot hear Brent right now, and we are trying to figure it out. All of a sudden, everybody's.
People at home, can you hear me now? Okay, so I'll just do snowball.
What if you leave that on? Let's see if you're going to have feedback or not.
Okay, so people online, you can hear me fine? Okay, tell me at what part you quit hearing. No, I'm just kidding.
Make sure we can.
Yeah, so I need to speak up a little bit. So hopefully everybody can hear okay. I'm just going to go back a little bit because it's so important what I was saying about left hemisphere, right hemisphere. Did you folks hear that part online?
Yeah.
Okay. So last week was the story of Nicodemus coming to see Jesus. And because Nicodemus is attracted to Jesus, there's something about this man that's different than just traditional religious ways. And he wants to know more. And so Jesus says to Nicodemus, you need to be born again, which is a very right hemisphere thing to say. And Nicodemus says, well, how can that be? How can I crawl into my mother's womb and be born a second time? Which is a very left hemisphere response, right? Okay, so, and it starts, the gospel writer of John, this is a dynamic throughout the gospel of the left hemisphere versus right hemisphere. People who take things literally and people who can understand more holistically, symbolically, metaphorically, right? So that's a template for us to consider as we take a look today at the story of the Samaritan woman at the well. One more thing I'd say before we continue though, and that is this. I've been fortunate to have taken courses on therapy, in my career and so on. And some of these courses, we were both going through therapy as a person, but other times we were sitting around watching other people go through therapy. And the idea was, and it's very true, when you watch someone go through therapy, you kind of go through it yourself. You can feel like little ahas or little awakenings or little connections or a shift. And so it's a beautiful experience to watch a couple or watch someone go through therapy because you yourself are participating in that experience. I'd like to suggest today that the story of Jesus talking to the woman at the well, it's like therapy. It's like therapy the way the gospel writer of John would write it. It's like a therapy session. Back then, of course, they wouldn't have said, they wouldn't have used words like counseling and therapy and so on. But some of the biblical stories are written in the same kind of way to make a transformation in the reader. And so when we listen to this story, it's like we're listening in onto a therapy session. And it doesn't just become about the woman at the well. It becomes about us, whether we can feel a shift in us. Okay, so that's another little template I wanted to say as we enter into the story of the woman at the well. Let me just go over it with these two templates, the right and left hemisphere and so on. So it's interesting that Jesus is walking through Samaria with his disciples. They go into town to buy some supplies, leaving him alone. And this other woman comes alone to the well, which people have said is unusual in these cultures, that a woman would come to a well by herself, because women did things together. And so why, it's just a question to ask. I wonder why this woman is coming to the well by herself. So two alone people, Jesus and the woman. And Jesus says to the woman, can you give me a drink of water? And the woman says, what are you doing talking to me? And now I'm going to give her a bit of an attitude. I hope that's okay. What are you doing talking to me? I'm a woman. You're a man. You're not supposed to talk to me. And I'm a Samaritan. You're a Jew. You're not supposed to talk to me. What are you doing talking to me? And Jesus says back to her, if you knew who you were talking to, you would ask me for water, and I would give you living water. Now, the term living water is a very right hemisphere term, okay? Now, the woman's not there, though. So she responds and she says, dude, so I'm going to give her a bit of an attitude. You don't have a bucket, and the well is deep. Where are you going to get this living water from? So she's in this literal left hemisphere thing. It's like, you don't have a bucket, the well's deep. Where are you going to get this living water from? So almost Jesus could have said, do you and Nicodemus hang out? Because both of you are your very left hemisphere people. And so Jesus then goes on more from a right hemisphere way in language and says, the water that you're drinking from in this well, you're going to get thirsty again. But the water that I would give you, you won't thirst again, and it'll gush up within you to eternal life. Now, in the Gospel of John, the term eternal life can be understood two ways. One, as a chronological term, like time. Eternal is like a bunch of years. That's left hemisphere. But the other way it's interpreted is it's not a quantitative term, it's a qualitative term. It's about the fullness of life, and that's a right hemisphere way of looking at it, okay? So Jesus is saying, this water, you're going to get thirsty again. The water I give you, you won't be thirsty again, and it'll gush up within you, there's that term within you, to eternal life, which is like the fullness of life. There's a quality to it. Now the woman then comes back, though, still in her left hemisphere, and says, that'd be great if, I'm paraphrasing a lot. If you gave me that living water, because I get tired coming here and I don't want to come to this well anymore. So she still doesn't get it. She doesn't understand the difference between the physical water, and this other thing that Jesus is talking about, this living water that's within her, that never runs out. So then Jesus shifts the conversation, you could say, and he says to her, go get your husband. Now, I know this can be interpreted, it doesn't sound good. Like, let's give it a really bad interpretation. Jesus is saying, you're a left hemisphere person. You're not going to get this. Bring your husband, because he's going to be right hemisphere, and he'll get what I'm saying, and then we'll mansplain it to you. Yeah, I don't think that's what's going on. Like, I don't want it to be what's going on. What comes out is she says, I don't have a husband. And he says, you're right to say that, because you've had 5 husbands, and the guy you're with right now is not your husband. You're living with your 6th guy, okay? So the way I'd like to interpret that is Jesus is trying to point out to her a symptom of her thirst, a symptom of her need, that she is going through men and not finding love in all those places. Now, I know men are wonderful, and one man you think would just satisfy her. Of course, I'm being very facetious. But in a way, could it be said that it's a sign that of this woman being a thirsty woman, and she's trying to find it in men, it's not happening, so that a need is there. Now, this next part is a little interesting, because this is a part where in therapy it often happens. She flatters Jesus and says, sir, I can see that you're a prophet. And then she tries to engage him in an intellectual debate. Some people think that God is worshipped on these mountains in Samaria, but people like you think God should only be worshipped in Jerusalem. What do you think? Like, let's take the attention away from me, and you're getting a little close, you're getting way too close to something I don't want to look at. So let's take it off to an intellectual conversation that probably people had argued about so much. It's a form of duck and cover, or just diverting the conversation away. Now, Jesus doesn't divert. He comes back to her again with right hemisphere way of speaking and thinking, and says, you know, the time is coming where it's not going to matter where people worship God, whether it's here on these mountains or in Jerusalem, there in the temple, because it doesn't matter, because God, let me add to the story, God is not physical. God is not worshipped in a place. And left hemisphere people matter about rules and laws and traditions. And Jesus isn't a left hemisphere person. And says, it's a very powerful line, it's very simple. God is spirit. God is not, if God is spirit, spirit is formless. God is not a form. God is not a thing. God is not the left hemisphere wants to make God into an object that we can see and touch. And okay, now the left hemisphere wants to make God into a part. But the right hemisphere is not thinking that way. And God is spirit. And so the day comes, Jesus says, when people will worship God in spirit and in truth. So this is very right hemisphere kind of stuff. And the woman, it's interesting, her response. And she says, someday the Messiah is going to come. And when the Messiah comes, he'll explain all this stuff to us. Which is like, this is way deep for me. I can't get it now. I don't understand what you're talking about. But someday the Messiah will come and he'll put it in words that I can understand. And then Jesus' response to her is, I am he, the one who is speaking to you. And of course, this is such symbolic language. I am he. And there's that word, I am again, which is the first person singular of I be, beingness. It's the pointer to the sacred reality. The I amness is present with you now. And right at that time, it says the disciples come back. And it's interesting because it's written in there that the disciples note that Jesus is talking to a woman, and they think, what's he doing talking to a woman? But they don't say anything to him. I just find it kind of a cute part of the story. And then the woman, though, she gets up and she leaves and she goes into town to tell the people that maybe the Messiah is there because he's telling me everything about myself. It's like Jesus is a tea leaf reader, or, you know, like somebody who can look at your palm or something like that and tell you about yourself. So she still hasn't caught on to what Jesus is saying. So this is where the question is for us, the readers, do we catch on? Do we understand what's going on here? The woman doesn't. The disciples don't. Do we, the readers, know what's going on? So this brings us then to talk about, well, what is going on? And it's hard because I am a left hemisphere person. I do better at math and science than I do in English and mystical kind of things. But here I am in this position. How do we understand what is being said here about living water gushing up within us to the fullness of life, that we don't become thirsty again? What could have been talked about in this story written so many years ago? The way I'd like to sort of just kind of explain it that works for me, and again, you have to kind of go to your right hemisphere. I have been helped by hearing spiritual teachers talk about the difference between our life situation and our life, or life. The difference between our life situation and life. Our life situation on the one, you could just say it's the circumstances of our lives. We all have a life situation. We're a certain age. We may live alone. We may live with somebody. We have bank accounts. We may be retired. We might have a job. We might have grandkids. You might have medical issues. That's all your life situation. But your life situation is also the story in your head about your life. So all of us have a story in our head. So if someone came up to us and said, hey, they just meet us at a social event. What do you do? Where do you live? Are you married? Like, it's all the questions are about our life situation. It's the story about me. And all of us have a story about me. And if you sat down with somebody, you'd probably start talking about the story of you. And that's your life situation. But how is that different from life? Life is not a story in your head. Life is not your life situation. It's not the circumstances of your life. Life is who you are. We're all life. We're all alive. And this is a key thing. There is no difference between life and the present moment. Life is only in the present moment. As soon as you leave the present moment, you go to a story in your head. Life is only here and now. And so the only place we can find life and be rooted in life is in the here and now. If we're in our head and we're thinking, like maybe the Samaritan woman was, we're not rooted in life. And now you think, well, that seems simple enough. How profound is it? Well, part of it is potentially most humans are not grounded and rooted in life. They are somehow lost in their life situation, which consumes them. And at that level, we never arrive. We never find satisfaction. We never get all our ducks in a row. There's always something to worry about or fix or not right, or something's going wrong, or our health is thin, or somebody's not happy, or whatever. There's always something not right in our life situation. Or you try to fix it. You think, I'm going to go and find life on a beach in Hawaii. And then you go to Hawaii and sit on that beach, and it won't be long before you go, I sure need a drink of something, or I need this, or I'm too hot now, I need to go back and air condition. It's just not going to last. It's just fleeting and temporary. Nice for a while, but in a while we're going to say, why? It wouldn't be bad to go back home, because where it came from is not a bad place too. So we can spend so much of our life in our life situation. How do we get rooted in life, in the here and now? How do we learn that that's where life is? And when we get there, we find ourselves potentially not lost in our mind, but rooted in being. And then we feel, you feel yourself rooted in life, that you are life. Oh, it's here, it's now, I am life. And once you're there, there's a sense where this just never runs out. Life, when you connect to the source of life, it's like, this is big, this is powerful, this is power, this is energy, this is life, this is love. It's the source is there. And then you don't have to go looking for life in all the wrong places. I mean, that's the theory. I know for me, I spend so much of my life in my life situation, so much of it in my head. But I'm grateful for stories like this story of the woman at the well and what it points to, what it means, because I think it is at the heart of something super important for us as individuals and for us as a humanity on this planet. Like Benny and I talked about. It's part of the salvation of our world, the salvation of ourselves and the salvation of our world. So grateful for the story of the woman at the well. Amen. Let's sing our next hymn then. And a paraphrase of the Magnificat, what Mary sang out. And it's number 120 in more voices, My Soul Cries Out. My soul cries out with a joyful shout that the God of my heart is great, and my spirit sings of the wondrous things that you bring to the ones who wait. You fix your sign on your servant's plight, and my weakness you did not spurn. So from east to west shall my name be blessed, could the world be about to turn. My heart shall sing of the day you bring, let the fires of your justice burn. Wipe away the tears of the dawn draws near, and the world is about to turn. From the halls of my arm, your faith rings in me, and your mercy will last from the depths of the past to the end of the age to be. Your very name puts the proud to shame, and to those who would root for yearn. You will show your might, put the strong to flight, for the world is about to turn. My heart shall sing of the day you bring, let the fires of your justice burn. Wipe away all tears, for the dawn draws near, and the world is about to turn. From the halls of power to the fortress tower, not a stone will be left on stone. Let the king beware, for your justice tears every tyrant from his throne. The hungry poor shall weep no more, for the food they can never earn. There are tables spread, every mouth be fed, for the world is about to turn. My heart shall sing of the day you bring, let the fires of your justice burn. Wipe away all tears, for the dawn draws near, and the world is about to turn. Though the nations rage from age to age, we remember who holds us fast. God's mercy must deliver us from the conqueror's crushing grasp. This saving word that our forebears heard is the promise which holds us bound, till the spear and rod can be crushed by God, who is turning the world around. My heart shall sing of the day you bring, let the fires of your justice burn. Wipe away all tears, for the dawn draws near, and the world is about to turn.
Good morning. Let us pray. O God, you are the beginning, the end, and the everlasting, present and future. We come with joy, knowing that we are your well-loved children. We come looking for direction for the days ahead, but we also feel the support of our community of faith. We thank you for the way our lives are held up by the love of our families and friends, by their trust and team play, by their support and care. Help us to respect the significance of this time and be faithful in it. We offer our prayers for our church home, for the wider church household, and for our whole church family. Give us hope as we look toward tomorrow. May we have courage to face the difficult questions of our world and the wisdom to seek solutions. Give us joy when we reach out to others. May we learn to appreciate the gifts we have been given and help us to use them in love. Lord God, you know that each of us in some ways is like the woman at the well. You know the struggle we have to release our minds to new truths about ourselves. Empower us to overcome any negativity that keeps us from being fulfilled. Help us to claim the possibility of a powerful life. O God, may all who are ill or suffering in the world have your healing and comfort. We hold up to you Alex and Jacob Best, Cheryl, Deb, Robin and Cliff, Andrea, Eddie, and the Olson family. May light perpetual shine upon Margaret. We thank you for her life among us. And now for all those whom we name aloud or in the silence of our hearts. In Jesus' name we pray. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Save us from the time of trial and deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, now and forever. Amen.
Thank you so much, Karen, for leading us. And
Thank you.
yes, thanks so much for leading us in the prayers there. And so our last hymn today, I Heard the Voice of Jesus, number 626 in Voices United. I heard the voice of Jesus say, "Come unto me and rest. Lay down, O weary one, lay down your head upon my breast." And he has made me glad. I heard the voice of Jesus say, "Behold, I freely give the living water, thirsty one, stoop down and drink and live." I came to Jesus and I drank of that life-giving stream. My thirst was quenched, my soul revived, and now I live in him. I heard the voice of Jesus say, "I am this dark world's light. Look unto me, your morn shall rise, and all your day be bright." I looked to Jesus and I found in him my star, my sun. And in that light of life I'll walk till traveling days are done. How different are we than the Samaritan woman? Thirsty, thinking one way, unable to see that we are at the source, that the well is near at hand, that nourishment is available, life is waiting to be tapped, water is ready to flow, and we can go, "Ah, there it is," and be different and live differently, and finally to arrive, though we haven't gone anywhere. It is here, now, waiting, available. Thanks be to God. Amen. Please have a seat, everybody, as we just are going to share a little bit in community